Last year has been an incredible year for Sunny's Silver Linings. From insightful conversations to inspiring stories, we've celebrated growth, innovation, and community. Thank you for being a part of this amazing journey. Now, let's take a look back at some of the best clips of 2024.
So if you had one lesson or tip to give to somebody starting an MSP today, what would that be?
I've found from my experience, if you read a lot and talk to a lot of people, you're going to learn a lot of things, but you shouldn't take it as gospel. You need to draw your own conclusions. Just go out there and do your own thing. If you're going to go and do someone else's thing, you might as well buy a franchise. That's what the franchise is for, to have someone else figure out the formula for how to run a business, and you just follow the playbook. That's an investment. That's not an entrepreneurial journey. So you need to learn from the mistakes of others, but don't necessarily try and mirror what you perceive to be their successes. You got to go out and do what works for you and your business.
Well, so, kind of continue on with what Michael said, you definitely need to, kind of do your own thing, but do know that you're not alone. And that's something that, when I first started this, I felt like I didn't have anybody I could talk to, any other resources to go to, just to even ask questions or bounce ideas off of. There are a lot of resources. There's a lot of people and communities available. Use some of those, case studies that other people have done and try and take that into your own environment and say, how would this work for me? Take the parts that you think will work and that you can use, and then adjust, to be able to make the other things that, leave out the stuff that's not going to affect you.
Well, that's some really good advice, hard to follow. Probably the two biggest things, and feeding on that, find a peer group. I can't express strongly enough how powerful that is. I mean, it gives you an opportunity to learn from other people's mistakes. I mean, one of the things that's really interesting about this community and why I love it as much as I do is that we willingly, wantingly share what we do with our peers, even if you're in a peer group with somebody who's quite literally right next door to you. I was in a peer group, so our MSP is located in Wilton, Connecticut. One floor above us is another MSP. And we were in a peer group together. And we used to talk about the trials and tribulations and all the BS that you go through running an MSP. You give yourself to the community and you give yourself to your peer group. And that sharing is incredibly invaluable.
Where do you see MSP businesses going from? Where do you see this channel going?
I mean, I think the biggest one is it's already here, but it's going to continue to develop, but it's AI. I think that one is something where MSPs can really start getting their feet wet in that right now, because it's not going away and it's just going to get bigger and more refined over time. And there's plenty of opportunities for how that can help us internally, but also our clients. And I think really getting our feet wet, understanding it, learning AI is going to make a huge difference in differentiating MSPs, but also where the industry is going.
If you're speaking to somebody just getting into the MSP space, or maybe just getting into a leadership role, what advice would you give them?
I'd say, embrace vulnerability. It's okay to admit that you don't know everything. It's okay to not know all the answers, and really have the right people around you that know the answer and really collaborate with them. So it is very important to have feedback from the people around you. And so having that, embracing that vulnerability, it's massive, at least in my experience.
And Chris, along those same lines, what do you wish you had known as you stepped into that leadership role for the first time?
I mean, Ahmad's spot on with things. I think the biggest thing for me, besides the vulnerability, really is to put your ego aside. If you're a new leader, you probably went from being an individual contributor to now being a leader of people and teams. And it's no longer about you, right? It's about the team. It's about the company's success, the project success, client success, whatever it is, it's really putting the ego aside. And I think the biggest thing, and this is something I actually learned when I became a football coach way back in the early 2000s, was find the people that are really good at what you do and go and learn from them. They may not do things exactly the same way. They may not do things the way you would want them done, but go find them and learn from them.
Any leadership lesson that you would like to share?
Really focusing more on a specific niche and product, and becoming really great at that one thing. So if I would go back, 25 years, I would tell myself, just focus on that piece of aspect and don't go into like inventorying systems and don't go into like remote management and monitoring. Just really do that one thing well. So most of our customers come to us from other customers, and they do that because they know that they love working with us. They can pick up the phone, they can contact us, honing in on that customer relationship that we have with our customers, as well as getting real specific on what we do really well.
How one can create a great culture in a company?
Yeah, good question. I agree. I think it starts at the top, right? So that visible leadership who drives the purpose and the energy of the organization. And then as leaders, making time for your people and being present, caring about them as people is a big shift we're sort of seeing in the marketplace, right? These are humans. You hear the words like psychological safety a lot, and creating that environment where people can show up as they are, building out that culture in a way where you're bringing people in who fit into those values and can continue to drive it as well from the bottom up. So I think that helps just create that culture of belonging and trust amongst people.
Yeah, that is so awesome. Culture of belongingness. That is so amazing.
You got to go deeper. You got to figure out why are you unique, and that will lead you to the customers that you want. And the customers, more important, is who you're going to say no to. Like if you want to build culture, write down and live by who you're going to say no to, and then actually live by it. And man, every time we've said no to just a really bad fit client, it has been just like this energy shot for our team. For example, integrity was etched at the headquarters of Enron.
Yeah.
Right. Clearly, just because etched doesn't mean it was being lived out. So you have to live out the values, and that's what gives the team energy. So I love that. If everybody listening probably very familiar with your book, but I love your book as well, Sonny. So take a look at that related to talent, and I believe you'll learn a lot from it.
If you haven't tried leveraging a team like yours, Sonny, try it. You don't have a lot to lose, but you have a ton to gain. You have a cost efficiency that, Sonny, you outlined better than I could. But you also have a way to improve the quality of life for the rest of your staff and take some of those odd hours off their plates and give them their own lives back with their family, their friends, etc. The worst thing that happens is it doesn't work and you go back to doing things the way you did. But living in fear and not trying something is only hurting everybody. And my thing to people would be, try something new. It could really benefit you.
Yeah, embracing change is important.
Absolutely.
How do you see global talent playing a role in the future, in the next decade or so?
Businesses have been able to find great talent that have been a real asset to their organization. Whether you're a $5 million MSP or a $50 million MSP, it's been an interesting trend that I've seen. And I think ultimately it just comes down to how well you're able to execute the cultivation, the growth and development of your staff, whether here in the US or abroad. And I think it's clear that there are success stories, regardless of where your staff are located. I think that's the really cool thing that's out there. There is not one singular path that companies need to take in order to be successful, profitable, have high degrees of employee engagement and supporting their growth and talent development over their careers at their MSP.
What strategies have you found most effective for building a strong company culture and retaining top talent?
So when I think about culture, I use a tool and I call it a culture guide. It's a document that says, hey, here's how we behave as a team. Here's our values in action. And it could be things like be on time. And what does that mean? It means that, if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. If you're late, you're lost. It could be like deal direct. Like if we have a problem, we're going to go straight to the person that we have a problem with. When you have a very strong culture with people that are committed and people that are competent in their roles, I call that the 3 C's: culture, competence, and commitment, then you are going to retain that top talent. And it's actually going to draw people in because your employees are going to be like, this is an awesome place to work, and want to bring along other people that they know.
I heard someone say this, that you only get 18 summers with your kids, for example. Time flies. And so it's like being intentional about making your relationships a priority, relationships that are important.
So not only do you only have 18 summers with your kids, but the math is that you spend 75% of your time with your kids before they turn 18. And a lot of people are banking on those 18 years, but what they don't take into consideration is that once they start driving, they're pretty much out of the house. They're spending summers with their friends, with their families, at work or at camps. And so we've had a lot of friends come back to us and say, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that I actually only have 16 real summers, real years with my kids before they're out of the house.
Based on your experience, what are the success strategies that you have used in the past where it helped you build and keep high-performing teams?
I think we've said it 10 times. It's communication, right? But expectations. But we got to kind of dig into that communication piece a bit. You have to communicate in a way that your team can understand. And just because you said something doesn't mean they've understood it, right? Or understood the severity or the importance. And so learning how to, get the team to all, we'll say, speak the same language, knowing how to communicate to your team in a way that they can be actionable upon it, right? Being very intentful with the message you're delivering, bringing everyone together, also under common core values, of how we're going to conduct ourselves for our customers.
What are the top mistakes and what are the lessons learned from those?
One of the things that took me a really long time to understand was customer value proposition. Anyone who's starting an MSP now, I would encourage them to be very focused on customer value proposition and what specific problem are you solving for your customers? What value are you creating for your customers? And I think that's something that sometimes gets lost in MSP conversations. And oftentimes the focus is on things like revenue and margin. How can we maximize our margin? And I just think that that's, if you talk about that too much, you're going to lose sight of the reason you exist, which is not to generate margin, but rather to solve your customers' problems and to create value for them.
My most important step is everyone be pragmatic, do things together. Whether you're a parent, do things together. Whether you're a leader, do things together. Whether you fail, do things together. There is camaraderie and unification and learning that happens when you fail together. Because I know that you put forth the best effort, but it still failed. So who am I to judge? But let's just improve upon that and iterate to perfection, right? And so if we have that mindset, go out there and fail. When you have the right culture, when you have the right leader, when you have the right environment and the right team, they're going to support you, put you back up on that bicycle, and then take those training wheels off. If you get a scratch or if you wreck, get back up again, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the whole idea. Isn't that what we're trying to accomplish?
What is the definition of community of communities?
Yeah, well, Sonny, we almost have to go back a little bit to our formative years. Things were simpler. The industry was simpler. It was a little bit smaller. But eventually you reach a tipping point in a community, Sonny, where you need to start having other communities inside your community because your community just gets bigger. There's communities that come out of those communities and other communities that are created. And they can all be, I'll use the term better together. I use that a lot because I think it's a good definition of community if you had to sum it up. But as IT Nation grew and Evolve grew, you learned a lot in the Evolve program and grew your business and you grew a community. And now your community and our community, they are better together. So we want to get the communities together so that we can have the best of all of it, but still maintain the connection to the community that you're the most associated with.
Dan Sullivan and Strategic Coach talk about the 4 C's formula. First, it starts with a commitment. You've got to be committed to loving your people, being a display of abundance and love versus scarcity and fear. You've got to be committed to not only you winning, but your people winning, and you're the shepherd and leader of those individuals. Once you make that commitment, well, all of a sudden you're overcome with a complete sense of fear. And you have to pass through that period of courage. And only after you've done that do you have the capability to actually be a great leader and a great manager. And then once you do that, you'll have the capability, you'll have the confidence to go do it again at a bigger and bigger level.
What can especially MSPs learn from historical responses to piracy, adapting to this evolving threat?
Making sure you have those cybersecurity defenses and you're practicing cybersecurity hygiene on even the most basic level is always important. Always make it a little harder on attackers, by raising that floor, have that multi-factor authentication. The cyber realm is almost back to the 1600s in terms of nation states are sometimes held hostage by small groups. Like, for example, Costa Rica was shut down by a ransomware group, the entire country. A couple of years ago. And these parallels are so unique that we're sort of back to this early modern stage of the cavalry isn't necessarily coming. It really is up to private organizations, insurance agencies, putting more cannons on your ship so that you dissuade pirates from trying to board you. It really is back to almost this, small organization level of protecting yourself and your industries.
So one of the things I'm a believer of is, it's a simple word really, make it better. If you keep on iterating on things, you'll make those small changes, whether it's 1%, 2%, 3%, which will make a difference in your business. Whatever you're doing at the moment, whatever tools you're using at the moment, whatever systems you're using at the moment, how can you make them better before you go and invest in doing new stuff? So do the existing stuff better before the new stuff.
What would you like to share with the world in terms of your secret sauce to build a winning team?
People and teams are like puzzles. Every puzzle piece is unique, just like people.
Yep.
People have different strengths. They have different weaknesses. You hire them for a role, but they may not work out in that role. So in looking at your staff, looking at people, what are their strengths? But more importantly, what are their passions? Mm-hmm. What do they love doing? Because if I can marry up their role with what they're passionate about and what they're good at, I can maybe shift them to a different position in the organization and company to fill in a need and to better fit the overarching puzzle.
I've always known that it's the best way to run a business and to build a business and to scale is to have your newest people surrounded by the most knowledgeable, most experienced people. Yeah, the worst thing I think you can do as a business is have people who haven't been there very long and are not experienced, teaching the new people who are just coming through. So in the first few months of any new person starting at Halo, and literally I spend about half a day in the first week of any new person who's come through on a dedicated session all about where we've come from, what our values are, where we're going to, and that's hugely important. But in addition to that, we literally sit there in the office just having all the experienced people, including myself. So in terms of building winning teams, then absolutely get your most experienced, best people with your least experience. More important than anything.
Thank you for watching Sunny's Silver Linings. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.